Hi, my name is Tim King. I am a band director and bass clarinet instructor, and I live in Rockwall, Texas. This video is to help you to prepare the West Texas A&M University Band Camp High School Year B audition material specifically for the bass clarinet. In this video, I'm going to be going through the different theme and variations. I'm going to be counting out some of the more complex rhythms. I'm also going to be practicing with you with a metronome, and then pointing out some technical aspects to consider, especially concerning the bass clarinet. At the very end of the video, I'll do a complete performance of this entire etude. Now, before we begin into this, let's talk about some knowledge things that will help you as you work through this music. One thing to point out right away is the key. We're in the key of concert F, or our G major scale. We're going to have B naturals and F sharps. It will be very helpful to be very proficient in playing this scale. Another aspect to consider is the time signature. This piece is in 6/8 time, and because of the faster tempo, it will have a compound or triple feel to it. So I would suggest that if you're unfamiliar with the key or 6/8 time, that you would, it'll be wise to practice that scale and counting rhythms in 6/8. If you're unsure where to look for those types of things, I would suggest going to your band director, a private instructor, or maybe an older student. One suggestion might be to create or have someone create for you a concert F scale using rhythms from the music to practice with daily. This might look like something like this. So make sure you spend some time really feeling comfortable with the 6/8 time and also the key of concert F. When we work through this etude, we'll be using the Eastman counting system for counting the 6/8 time, a one law lead counting system. So before you begin I would take the time out to number your measures. This will help us to save time. Looking at the very top, look at the tempo suggestions. Moderato dotted chord or note equals 60 plus, and it says suggested. That's a target tempo. You can choose to go faster or slower depending on how comfortable you feel. When you're just starting out, I would use a slower tempo, and that's what we're going to do here. We're going to use a tempo of 40 and have the triplet subdivision on. If your metronome doesn't have a triplet subdivision, you can just set your metronome to 120 and it will give the same effect. Remember that this piece is designed to start easy and it gets more technical as it advances along. So you only need to play to the end of the theme or variation where you are most comfortable. It's not necessary to do an entire performance. You will get better consideration for a higher band if you can perform the entire etude though. So just determine what is best for you. Okay, let's look at the theme first, measures 1 through 8. When we look at this, we're going to look at it at 2 measures at a time. You'll notice that every 2 measures are completely slurred, so don't add articulations that aren't there. Let's look at measure 1. Watch that third note. There's our first B natural, thumb 1, 2, 3, and the middle finger, not first finger B flat, but middle finger B natural. That happens a lot in this piece. Measure 2, we also have our second note, a B natural as well. Now, if you look at the first 2 measures too, we start at mezzo forte, crescendo in measure 1. The first note in measure 2 is our loudest one, and then we do a quick decrescendo in measure 2. So make sure we can hear those dynamic differences right off the bat. Here's how these first 2 measures sound. And here we count 1 la li 2 li 1 2. Let's try and play it together. And 1 la li play la li. All right, let's go on. Measures 3 and 4. The very first thing in measure 3 is to look at that fourth note in. There's our first F sharp. I would go ahead and mark that. We're going to use first finger F sharp here. So go ahead and mark that note. Then in measure 4, we have a C sharp accidental, thumb 1, 2, 3, and the top left hand pinky. It is very common for a lot of players to add extra notes when going from B natural to C sharp by accidentally playing a C natural, or coming out of the C sharp up to the D, again, accidentally sticking in a C natural. Make sure that we have no extra notes here. The dynamics are also different than measure 1 and 2, so don't copy and paste the dynamics. Measure 3 stays one dynamic level, then there's a big crescendo in measure 4 to measure 5, the first note as a forte there. So make sure we hear that dynamic difference as well. Let's count measures 3 and 4, then we'll play it. And 1 la li 2 li 1 la li 2. Let's play it. Measures 3 and 4, down, press, up, play, la li. All right, checking out measures 5 and 6. In measure 5, the very second note is going to be a B natural again, and it's going to be going over the break. Thumb register 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the top bottom pinky and the inside pinky. Going over to that note on bass clarinets can be tricky sometimes. Don't choke off in your throat. Keep nice and open like you're fogging up a window on a cold day. But do keep your embouchure firm. Keep that pressure consistent. Don't bite. That will just cause the instrument to squeak. Make sure when you go over to that note that you hit the register key first. Sometimes that might cause you to get a low note if you don't hit that out fast enough. Now, the third note after that B natural is another F sharp. Again, go ahead and mark that note in there. Then in measure 6, the very last note is a C natural. It's a courtesy accidental. It's just taking us back to the original key. So let's just thumb 1, 2, 3, C. Don't confuse it with the C sharp we had in measure 4. All right, let's count through these two measures. Oh, by the way, the dynamics in these two measures are a full forte all the way throughout. Keep it nice and full. Here we go, counting those two measures. And down, press, up, count, la, li. 1 la, li, 2 la, li, 1, 2, li. Let's play measures 5 and 6. And 1 la, li, play, la, li. Then looking at measure 7 and 8. In measure 7, we start right off the bat with that B natural again. The last note is that F sharp again. I would mark it. And then measure 8, we hold out that note for a dotted half note, or for full value, 2 full beats of 6 pulses. So don't cheat that note. Looking at the dynamics 2, we have a decrescendo through that measure 7 into measure 8. Don't get soft too quickly. Make sure you stretch that out a little bit. Okay, let's count these last two measures. And down, press, up, count, la, li. 1 la, li, 2 la, li, 1. Again, hold that measure 8, full value. Let's play it. 1 la, li, play it, la, li. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to play the entire theme at this tempo of 40 here. Here we go. And down, press, up, play, la, li. All right, now let's take a look at variation 1, measures 9 through 16. Let's look at measure 9. This is the first appearance of 16th rhythms in this piece. If you are uncomfortable with counting 16th rhythms or just new to you, I would highly recommend taking a pencil and using downward arrows to mark which notes are the 1, la, li, 2, la, li parts of the rhythm. This will help you to be very accurate when you're counting and playing it and make sure that you're doing it correctly. Now take a look at the third note in. That's still an F sharp from the key. I would mark that note sharp and then on the return down too. Now the actual notes in measure 9 are a concert C major scale or our D scale. It just doesn't go all the way up. So just make sure that you really know that scale, and this should be a very easy measure to play. Let's look at the articulations. On the way up, we will tongue. On the way down, we will slur. And on the way up, all the 16th notes are marked staccato. Think light or separated. Don't think short because that might get you tonguing too harshly. One thing to consider is the very top note, that B natural over the break, similar to what we talked about in measure 5. Keep open, like you're fogging up a window on a cold day. Firm but consistent embouchure pressure, don't bite. And then making sure you're getting the fingers to land correctly, getting that register key pushed down early. If you do those things, that note should have no problem speaking very cleanly and quickly. However, a lot of bass clarinet players, either by the instrument or by themselves, pause trying to get to that note and then take too much time to make sure it speaks. I would not give up the rhythmic integrity to get that note to speak. I would just keep moving forward and play the rhythm accurately there. All right, look underneath there. You've got your crescendo going up and then a decrescendo going down in that measure 2. So there's a lot going on within that measure. Look at measure 10. Your first note is a quarter note. Hold that out full value. Then you have your 8th rest. Then you have that repeated note and it slurs down to a B natural. So make sure we play that correctly too. Let's count measures 9 and 10 and then we'll play them. And down, press, up, count, lolly. 1, lata, lita, tita, lata, lita, 1, 2, lead. Let's play 9 and 10. Ready and play, lolly. Let's move on. Look at 11 and 12. In measure 11, we have the same rhythm, articulation, and dynamics as measure 9. What changes is the notes. This is a concert B flat major scale or C scale, again, just not going all the way up. Look at that 4th note in. That is an F accidental. It's not a courtesy accidental. It is thumb F and it repeats within that measure 2. Okay? In measure 12, we are slurring that entire measure. The second note is that C sharp, which we talked about in the theme again. Be very careful not to add extra notes going to it or coming away from it. The very last note is a dotted quarter note. Dotted quarter note. Make sure we don't hold that note or don't cheat that note. Hold it out its full length, 3 pulses. And then finally, that measure crescendos up to a very full forte. Make sure that is nice and full at the end too. Let's count 11 and 12 and then we'll play it. Down, press, up, count, lolly. 1, lata, lita, tita, lata, lita, 1, li, 2. Let's play 11 and 12, ready? And down, press, up, play, lolly. All right, measure 13 and 14. Now in measure 13, we have the same rhythms, we have the same articulations as measures 9 and 12. What changes is the dynamics. That's the big thing I want to point out. We finished measure 12 playing forte. Measure 13 drops immediately to piano, soft, and it stays that way through 13 and measure 14. There's no dynamic changes after we hit that piano. Make sure that is obvious. Now in measure 13, again, the notes change as well. We have the same rhythm and articulation, still staccatos, but now we're playing a concert A flat major scale. And let's look at those notes. So it's our B flat scale. B flat for the first note, thumb 1, 2, 3, first finger. A C natural, D, E flat, thumb 1, 2, bottom side key, then the F natural again. All those notes return on the way down in that measure as well. Okay? Measure 14. We start out with a dotted quarter note. Make sure we hold that full value. Don't take a breath in between that. Then we go to our E natural. This is returning us back to the main key. And then it ends with a C natural, courtesy accidentals there. Make sure those last 2 notes are also slurred. And again, we're maintaining the piano dynamic here. Let's count and play measures 13 and 14. And down, press, up, ready, and count. Lolly. 1, la-ta, li-ta, 2, ta, la-ta, li-ta, 1, 2, li. Let's play those two measures. Ready? And down, press, up, play, la, li. All right, measures 15 and 16 to finish here. Again, measure 15 is the same rhythm and articulation as 13, 11, and 9. Again, what changes is our dynamics first off. Once we hit the 16th notes, we'll do a crescendo all the way to the last note in measure 16 at forte and hold that out full value. Okay? Now, the other thing that changes here is the fact that we are also going descending on this one instead of going up. So this is not a concert C major scale, it's actually a concert F major scale, which is the key of the piece. So we have our B naturals in there, and then we do have an F sharp at the end. I would go ahead and mark that F sharp, the last note of measure 15. Now, in measure 16, that dotted half note, make sure we hold that for 2 full beats. Don't cheat that note there, okay? Let's count and play measures 15 and 16. Down, press, up, count, la, li. 1, la-ta, li-ta, 2, ta, la-ta, li-ta, 1. Let's play 15, 16. And down, press, up, play, la, li. All right, we're going to now play all of variation 1. And down, press, up, ready, and play, la, li. Okay, now we're going to be moving on and looking at variation 2. Measure 17 through 24 is all of variation 2. But we're going to kind of break this up a little bit because it's so much in practice, like just 4 measures at a time. So I'll play those 4 measures and then do the same on the next 4 measures. Then I'll play it again. So that way it just kind of gives us a little more focus. There's a lot going on in this variation. So in variation 2, we start at mezzo forte, medium loud, and it maintains that for that entire measure. The rhythm starts with 16th rhythms, 1 ta la ta lita. You'll slur the first 2 notes and then staccato tongue the remainders, light and detached. The highest note is that F sharp again, that first finger, and then it finishes with a 2 li. Let's count measure 17 first. And down, press, up, count, la, li. 1 ta la ta lita 2 li. Let's play that measure. And down, press, up, play, la, li. Okay, moving on to measure 18. The first beat, 1 la li, that last note is that B natural. Slur the first 2, tongue that last one. Then that second beat, we have that 16th pattern again, 2 ta la ta lita. The first 2 notes are slurred, the rest are staccato tongued. Now, those 16th notes are just a chromatic scale there. So we start on our low G, thumb 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, go up to the A natural. A sharp is just a B flat, that first finger B flat. Then the next note is a B natural, but instead of flipping, we're going to use the trill key, that little sliver key between the low A and the low G, and you push it with your ring finger. Use that as the chromatic scale. So B natural. Then release both of those 2 for the C. Then the last note's a C sharp. And the first note of 19 is that D. So again, low G, A sharp, B natural with the trill key, C, C sharp, D. Now, to help me remember to use the chromatic fingering for that B natural, I'll put an X over that note. The last thing to look at is the fact that there is a crescendo all the way up through those 16th notes as well too. Let's just take a look at that measure 18. We'll count it and then we'll play it. And 1 la li, count, la li. 1 la li, 2 ta la ta li ta 1. Let's play it. and down, press up, play, lolly. Now, in measure 19, we start with that same 16th note pattern where it's slur 2, tongue, staccato tongue the rest. So one ta la ta lita, and it is also crescendoing. Notice we start on D, go up to E, first finger F sharp. I would mark that F sharp, open G, A natural. That is just a courtesy accidental back to that G. Excuse me. The rest of the measure is just eighth notes. It starts on that F sharp again, slur to an E, and then finishes on a D. Those notes are decrescendoing. So the loudest note in measure 19 will actually be that second F sharp. So let's count measure 19. Down, press up, count, lolly. One ta la ta lita, two lolly. Let's try and play that 19. And down, press up, play, lolly. By itself, it's not too complicated. The trick is those 16th notes in measure 18 going into the 16th and 19, keeping those smooth and even and crescendoing throughout the whole 16th passage. So in measure 18, starting on the 16th, going into 19, we want to hear that crescendo continue through both of those 16th note passages. So this should sound like this. Ready, in, play, lolly. So you can hear where it leads from chromatic back into scalar mode in measure 19. And that crescendo, just like I said, continues through all of that. All right, let's go ahead and go on to measure 20. In measure 20, we start again with that 16th articulation pattern again, slur to the first two, staccato tongue the rest. And now we've left moving notes scale-wise from chromatic or major scale-wise. Now we're doing an arpeggiated passage here. It might be easiest to do this very slowly, maybe not even with the metronome, just to make sure we're getting accurate notes. So starting on an E, going to that C sharp, then to a low A, then a low G, back to the A, up to the C sharp, and then it goes to a D. So it's a very unusual little pattern here, but in reality, it's just an A major arpeggio. We just go down to that low G, and then it ends on that D. So again, I would do this slowly, one note at a time. And you might have to do that multiple times to make sure you've got that very accurately. Then the second beat starts on that D, drops down to the low G, it's slurred, then tongue a B natural, then goes up to the D, and then it finishes with a G eighth note, tu ta la ta li. That is just an F major arpeggio there. What I would do again is practice these two beats independently and then try to put them together. Notice that you decrescendo on the first 4 16th notes. That's a continuation from the decrescendo starting in 19. And then you start crescendoing on the low A all the way to the end of that G. And the loudest note will actually be in measure 21. So we're going to go ahead and add that note too. Let's count measure 20 and then we'll play it. Ready and count, lolly. One ta la ta lita, two ta la ta li, one. Let's play it, and ready, and play, lolly. All right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to count those first 4 measures of variation 2 and play it for you, or not count it, play it for you, just to give you that practice on that little section. You might need, like I said, to divide this up a measure at a time, maybe even a beat at a time. Let me play 17, 18, 19, 20, stop on the first note of 21 real quick. Ready and play, lolly. Okay, now we're going to continue on to measure 21. In this measure, I would look at this a beat at a time too. So that first beat is that 16th pattern we've seen before, where we slur the first 2 16ths and staccato tongue the remainder. Again, this is a little more arpeggiated here. We're at forte, full value all the way throughout this measure. So we go from D down to C natural, that's just a courtesy accidental, back to D. First finger F sharp, I would mark that F sharp again. Then going over the break to that B natural again. Thumb register 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that top, bottom, pinky, and the inside one. Remember, keep open like we're fogging up that window. Keep the embouchure firm and focused, but not biting. And then make sure that we're lightly tonguing. That note should speak very quickly and easily if we do those things and your bass clarinet's working properly. Don't compromise the rhythmic integrity to get that note to speak. So don't let it stop. Keep moving forward. Then it finishes from that B back to an F sharp, then it goes up to an A. You might again play this first beat very slowly, maybe even without a metronome. To really work that out. But 1 ta la ta li ta 2. Now on that second beat in that measure, this is a new rhythm. We haven't seen this before. We have a dotted 8th note followed by 3 16ths. 2 ta li ta. 2 ta li ta. I would go ahead and write that underneath those notes, and again use the down arrows to point out where the 2 la and the li occur, which notes they occur. Now the 2 and the la actually occur on that dotted 8th A. 2, then ta, then put another downward arrow on that F sharp, that's the li ta. 2 ta li ta. Notice that the 16ths again are slurred. So counting all of measure 21 to the first note of 22 to help finish it out sounds like this. Down, press, up, count, lolly. 1 ta la ta li ta, 2 ta li ta. Let's try and play it. And down, press, up, play, lolly. All right, moving on, measure 22. We're looking at that first beat again. We have the 16ths on that first beat, the 1 ta la ta li ta, however the articulations have changed. Slur 2, slur 2, slur 2. 1, la, li. So again, I'm going to use those downward arrows, the first one being on the D, the second one being on the C, the third one being on the B natural. 1 ta la ta li ta to show where that 1 la li is again there too. We have a D slurred up to F sharp, C slurred up to E, B natural slurred up to D, and then it finishes on an A on that second beat. I again would play this slowly to make sure to get these notes accurate. It's a very unusual pattern there. 2 ta la ta li ta 1, and again slowly speeding it up until it gets really back into the rhythm that we want to do. Now in measure 22 on that second beat, we have grace notes. Those are the little 8th note looking notes from between the D and the C. Ignore those for a second and the rhythm is very simple. 2 la li 1. Low A, D, C natural, B natural. 2 la li 1. It's very simple that way. So it's not going to be too difficult on those little that rhythm. The grace notes will occur just before that C. You want to make sure that C is correctly on the li of beat 2. 2 la li 1. And you will slur from an E to a D to that C on those graces. It's going to be very quick. So that should sound. Notice you can still hear the 2 la li 1. So that whole measure will slowly decrescendo to the first note of 23. So all together, counting measure 22, it should sound like this. And here we count 1 ta la ta li ta 2 la li 1. Let's put that together. Ready and play. La li. That's what we're looking for in that measure. Now, onward to measure 23. In that measure, we have the 16ths again for the first beat, and it's all slurred now. Low B natural, down to a low G, back to a low B natural. Now this is where it gets a little tricky. Your fingers will naturally want to go up to a D because that's part of that arpeggio, that concert F arpeggio. But it doesn't. It goes up to an E natural, up to G, back to E natural, and then it finishes on that D. So be very careful that you don't trick yourself into thinking you're getting this correctly, but you're missing the E naturals. So again, I would play this slowly. One, ta, la, ta, li, ta, one, and then slowly speed it up. The rest of that measure is pretty easy. D, C, low A, it's not too difficult at all, to, la, li. Then in measure 24, it starts with the grace note, but if you ignore that for a second, it's just 1, 2, very simple rhythm there. You will play that grace note, though. It will be a B natural, quick little grace note slurred to that A. Just right before that A happens on the downbeat of 1. Ba-da, 2. If you look at the dynamics in measure 23 and 24, you crescendo the 16ths up to that D, and then it slowly decrescendos down to a mezzo piano in measure 24. Counting 23 and 24 should sound like this. 1 ta la ta li ta 2 la li 1 2. Let's play it. Ready and play. La li. So now I'm going to play 21, 22, 23, and 24. Here we go. And down, press up. 21 and play. La li. Now I'm going to go ahead and play all of variation 2, measure 17 through 24. Here we go. Down, press up. Ready, and play. La li. Variation 3, that's measure 25 to the end. We're going to look at this at 4 measures at a time too, so I could play through those 4 measures just to be very accurate. There's a lot going on in this variation as well too. All right, measures 25, 26, 27, and half of 28 maintains the same rhythm all the way throughout. It's just that 16th note rhythm, that 1 ta la ta li ta, 2 ta la ta li ta. It's just consistent repeated notes. So rhythmically this isn't challenging. So it's very easy to practice this at a slow tempo and just increase it up to make sure you got it very clean and accurate. Let's go ahead and look at measure 25 first. We start out at mezzo forte, medium loud. In that first beat, the 1 ta la ta li ta 2, we have some accents for the first time instead of staccatos. Accents I like to think of as almost like little mini decrescendos. We're going to play the front of the note a little bit heavier than the end, so it's like a little decrescendo there. I'm going to use breath accents here too. I'm not going to tongue harshly, but just have an increase of the air on those notes as well. So it starts with a D, goes to that B natural again, middle finger, up to an E, back to the B natural, low G, B natural, D. So we see that B natural keeps returning back in this little first beat. So 1 ta la ta li ta 2. Again, I would play this slowly just to make sure I've got the notes accurate first. Just making sure it's very clean. In that second beat, it is all slurred. It starts on that D, drops down to the B natural again, low A, G, low A, B natural, and finishes on that C. 2 ta la ta li ta 1. The ta li ta 1 starts the crescendo. So it stays mezzo forte through that whole measure until the last 3 notes. So, counting all of measure 25, it should sound like this. And again, we'll stop on the first note of 26 to get that continual pulse there. Ready and count, la li, 1 ta la ta li ta, 2 ta la ta li ta 1. Again, not too difficult for the rhythms here. It's just constant 16th notes. Let's play it. And ready, and play. Lolly. And hopefully you can hear I'm trying to air that accent, those accents out just a little bit more to make that distinction there. All right, moving on to measure 26. We start that first beat of 16ths all slurred. C, D, E, F sharp. I would go ahead and mark that F sharp, open G, A, and then the first note of 26 is over that break again, B natural. We've probably talked that enough. Just keep those things consistent. Open, like you're fogging up that window air, firm embouchure corners, locking those fingers down, getting the register key pushed down, not biting. That should come out perfectly if your bass clarinet's working really well. So that first note in measure 26 also has that accent, so we want to breath accent that a little bit there too. And then it crescendos all the way up to forte on that note. So making that nice, big, and full. That one's not going to be too difficult. That second beat of measure 26, that B natural starts it, goes to open G, down to a D, low B natural, low G, B natural. This is just a concert F major arpeggio. It's not too difficult, but you might play it slowly to make sure you get it accurately. So all of measure 26, count it and play it. Sounds like this. Ready and count, lolly. One ta la ta lita, two ta la ta lita, one. And playing it is ready and play, lolly. So very easy, simple measure 26. All right, measure 27 is at forte. The big thing is to look at those accents. If you were to count it, the accents happen on the 1, la, li, 2, la, li. Think about when we were using those arrows to help point out those main parts of the rhythm there. That's what's happening with those accents. So what I would do is this. If you look at every other note, the 1 ta, la ta, li ta, the tas, you will see they're all B naturals. I'm going to play this measure and just ignore those B naturals. So 1, la, li, 2, la, li, and go ahead and play the downbeat of 28, that one. So it sounds like this. You want to listen for that little rhythm, that little melody line right there. Then every other note after that is just going to be that B natural. Now to practice this is what I've done with former students before, and I think it works. Add just one B natural at a time. So measure 27, I'm just going to add that first B natural and play the accents on the 1 la li, 2 la li, 1 as normal. I'm just adding one B natural. So it should sound like this. Ready, and here I go. Heard that one little extra. 1 ta la li, 2 la li, 1. When I feel I've got that one, add the next B natural. Ready, and go, lolly. Add the next one, and go, lolly. And you would continue doing that pattern until you've had the whole measure added in. Again, rhythmically, it's not too challenging, and we want to breath accent those notes. Make sure that when you're playing those low Bs, you're not cheating that and rushing it or playing it too clipped. Make sure they're also nice and full. All of measure 27 counted and playing sounds like this. Ready and count, lolly. 1 ta la ta lita, 2 ta la ta lita, 1. Let's play it. Ready and play, lolly. And trying to aim to get as much breath accent on those main parts of the beat as much as possible. Now in measure 28, it starts with that 16th pattern again. The first note is tongue, the second note is tongue, and then the remainder is slurred. So E, B natural, A, G, A, a skip up to a C sharp, don't add extra notes, extra fingers there, and then up to a D dotted quarter note for beat 2. So counting measure 28 is one ta la ta li ta 2. Let's go ahead and play it. Ready and play. Lolly. So that measure is really not that tricky. You just got to make sure to get that C sharp put in there correctly. We're going to go ahead and play 25, 26, 27, 28. The big thing is to look for those accents, breath accent those notes, keeping everything even consistent because it's all pretty much even and consistent. It's just all 16th pattern rhythms, and then making sure not to rush or slow down anything. Here we go, playing 25, 26, 27, 28. 1, lolly, go, lolly. Now we're going to be looking at measure 29 to the end. Let's look at measure 29 first, that first beat. One ta la ta li ta 2. This is not too difficult rhythmically. It's just that consistent 16th rhythm again. Where the difficulty lies is in the notes. We start on our D, we go to a low B natural, and then it jumps up an octave to a B natural with the register key down, back to the low B, F sharp first finger, open G, A. You also have accents on the 1 la li again. To work this out, I would build it a note at a time. This is tedious, but this will be very helpful in this one little part of the beat. So I would play just those first 2 notes, the D to B natural. Make sure that's nice and full. Then add the octave higher B natural. Then the next octave back down B natural. Then the F sharp. Then the open G. And then the A. One ta la ta li ta 2. So this measure, that part of the beat, will probably take a lot of practice. So give yourself grace and time to work that out. Starting on beat 2 in measure 29, we have the 16th pattern again. Starts on A, open G, then F sharp. I would put an X over that F sharp because I'm going to use, and also mark that F sharp, I'm going to use thumb in the bottom 2 side keys F sharp. Then regular old thumb F, then E flat, then a D in measure 30. So starting on that F sharp, it's chromatic to the D. The A and G is not chromatic, but starting on F sharp down is chromatic. 2 ta la ta li ta 1. So all of measure 29 is 1 ta la ta li ta 2 ta la ta li ta 1. Let's play it. Ready and play. Lolly. Now, moving on to measure 30. We have grace notes in measure 32. Let's ignore it for a second. Just look at that rhythm. 1, 2, li. D natural, E, C natural. And I know it's marked C natural. Let's explain why. Let's look at those grace notes here. We have an E natural down to a D to a C sharp, back up to a D to an E. That C sharp in the grace note would carry through the measure. That's why the C is marked natural at the end. So, E, D, C sharp, D, E. I would practice that. It's all slurred to make sure you've got that nice and even. Where do we want to place those grace notes? We want to place them on the li of beat 1. We don't want to put them on the downbeat of beat 2. We want that E natural, that last note, to be on the downbeat of 2. So 1 la, li ta 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 2, li ta 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 2, li ta 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 2, li ta 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 2. 1 li ta 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 2 li. That's how you would count all of measure 30. Then you add the downbeat of measure 31, 1 to a low B natural. This is all still at forte. Okay, we have not changed dynamics since measure 26, so we're still staying at a full forte here. Let's play measure 30. Ready and play. Lolly. Try to keep those graces nice and even. Then in measure 31, The two beats are 16th repeated rhythms again, tuta lata lita, one ta lata lita, tuta lata lita, one. B natural up to F sharp. You might think it would be easiest to go to first finger F sharp, but in reality, we want to go ahead to do thumb, bottom, two side keys F sharp. Now, if you've forgotten that that note is F sharp, go ahead and mark it, but I will also put an X over the top of that F sharp to tell myself I want to use chromatic F sharp, because that thumb F sharp going down is all chromatic. F sharp, F natural, E, E flat, D, C sharp, C, B natural, and again I'm going to use the first and trill key, so I'm going to put an X over that B natural, B flat, A flat with the top pinky, and then the first note measure 32 is that G. This starts out at forte and then it slowly decrescendos to that G. You tongue the first B natural and then the F sharp, everything else is slurred too. So playing measure 31, down, press, up, play, lolly. Now, in measure 32, we have one ta lata lita 2, that same little rhythm that's nice and simple for us by now. We start on the low G, then we start tonguing after that, and we have the staccatos back. Staccatos are marked for all the notes to the end, light and separated, not short. So low G, B natural, goes up to our D, open G, over to the break to that B natural again. The next note's a high D, thumb register 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then the top note is a high G, thumb register 1, 2, 3. Those high notes usually are too harsh on the embouchure. We want it firm, we want it focused, but not biting. Too tight in the throat. Remember, keep nice and open like we're fogging up that window. Correct fingers, correct fingerings, but then very light for the tongue. Notice also underneath that beat 1, we have a crescendo and the top note is forte. Use that volume to your advantage to really get that air secure on all those notes. One ta la ta lita 2. Very big and full for that last note. Now, don't make it clipped, don't make it short. Separated light, make it a nice release, a nice resonant tone. Now, the remainder of that measure is 2/8 rest. 2, la, li, rest, rest. I'm going to go ahead and write underneath that high G, the 2, and underneath the 2 rest, the la, li, so I can remind myself to count that in my head. And then in 33, you have 1/8 note. It's a low G, it's staccato, and it's piano. It's soft. Practice how you want that to sound. Don't leave it to chance. Soft. Got to get it open and full, resonant. Keep that air fast so we still have an impact of a note. Keep it nice and soft. So playing measure 32 and 33 should sound like this. Ready and play. Oh. Trying to make a big dynamic difference. Okay, let's try to play measures 29 to the end now. Down, press, up, ready, and play. Lolly. And let's go ahead and play measures 25 to the end, variation 3. 1, lolly, ready, and play, lolly. Okay, so that completes this whole little exercise for this etude here. Fortunately, this is on a video recording, so if you need to go back and review something, you're very welcome to do that. Or if you come back to this later and just want to look at a specific variation, it's very easy to fast forward over it too. Now, what I'm going to do for you next is I'm going to perform this etude without the metronome, but back at the suggested tempo of 60. Before I do that, though, I do want to talk to you about you getting yourself performance ready for the audition as well in July. Now, obviously, you want to start at a slower tempo, and we started at a slower tempo of 40, and it might be that's too fast even for you still. It's okay to go even slower as well. I would also figure out what etude is your stopping point, or sorry, not etude, what variation is your stopping point. So like if you're playing the theme and the first variation only, or the second one, whatever the most technical variation is, that's where you will want to start trying to work on increasing that tempo. You don't want to necessarily play the etude at a fast speed of 60 and then slow down each variation as you play it through. That is okay if you have to do that, but it's better if you can maintain the same tempo all the way throughout. So I would find that most technical etude and slowly increase that tempo one click at a time. I know that seems like it'd take too long, but it actually is the fastest way to do that. Then after maybe a couple of clicks, I'd go back and play the other variations and back up to the theme too, just to make sure that you're still maintaining the same speed all the way throughout. When you do work on this and you start speeding it up, when you're working on that technical one, if you get to a point where it starts to become fumbly, that might be the tempo where you might, if it's not one that you're happy with and you want to go faster, work it like we did just now at that tempo of 40, a little bit at a time, okay? Now, the next thing too is once you do get up to your performance tempo, you want to start also thinking about the phrasing or where you're going to be taking your breaths more specifically. If you're doing the suggested tempo of 60, I find it's actually very easy to play that first theme, measures 1 through 8, on one breath. And you'll hear me do that in my performance here too. But think about where you want to take your breaths. Try to avoid breathing and slurs and also at dynamic changes if possible. Practice also to make for clean releases with all your breaths. Don't just stop the note instantly. Maybe taper the release just a little bit to make it nice and clean too. The next thing to also think about too is practicing to perform. And what I mean by that is every so often you want to practice from the beginning to whatever variation or to the end without stopping, even if there are mistakes. The goal shouldn't be perfection. The goal should be to be so prepared that you can handle any situation that arises, including an error or mistake. So practice from the beginning to the end without stopping. Record yourself and watch it played back. You'll be your worst critic every time. Play in front of others too, because that helps get your adrenaline rushing just a little bit for your brothers or sisters or mom, dad, grandmother, or your director or private instructor or other students going to the camp with you too. I also really highly recommend that you mentally prepare yourself too for that performance. Like actually visually see yourself performing each variation and etude to its highest level of perfection as possible. That is actually a really good practice and how you might feel achieving that goal in the audition room. All right? Now, when you get to the actual audition, it is acceptable, and I want to point this out, that if you put a slight pause between the theme and the variations. So if you play the theme, take a quick second, take a breath, and then jump into variation 1. Play that 1, take a second, take a breath, go into 2. That is okay. It's also acceptable to play it straight through without pauses, and that's what I'm going to be doing. So, last couple of tips for you. Make sure that you have a good set of reeds, plural, not just one. This is a 2-week camp, and that set of one reed, playing that over and over, will not make it. I would have maybe a full box or 2 boxes of reeds and have them ready to go. Don't wait till the audition date to pull out a new reed and hope that one's going to work for you. That would be the same thing as looking at the music the day of the audition as well. You're not going to be prepared. Start playing on those reeds, but rotate through them. Find the best ones and make sure you've got your very best one for that audition date. And then also keep and maintain a good set of reeds and rotate through them all throughout the camp as well. It's a lot of playing for 2 weeks, okay? I really hope that this video has been some help for you. I hope these suggestions and ideas will help you prepare to give your very best audition, and also that you have a great experience at camp. It's a wonderful 2 weeks. I hope I get to see you in July here in a couple of weeks, and then also that you are just really well prepared. Again, I'm going to be performing this last little etude for you with no metronome, but at the 60 suggested tempo. It might be fun for you to actually try to play that with me if you would like to as well too. Again, I hope this video has helped you out, and I wish you all the best of luck as you prepare for the band camp. Hope to see you in July. Thanks. Bye.